Treasure Island, Chapter 9, Powder and Arms. In the last chapter, Jim Hawkins went to get Long John Silver at the inn called the Spyglass to tell him that the ship was going to sail that very day and that he should be there at the dock to board the ship by 4 p.m. The Hispaniola lay some way out, and we went under the figureheads and round the sterns of many other ships, and their cables sometimes grated underneath our keel and sometimes swung above us. They took a small boat to get out there, a rowboat, and while they were rowing out to where the Hispaniola was anchored, they had to go around a lot of other ships. The cables are their anchor cables, the cables that hold the ships in place so they don't float off and drift ashore. At last, however, we got alongside and were met and saluted as we stepped aboard by the mate, Mr. Arrow, a brown old sailor with earrings in his ears and a squint. He and the squire were very thick and friendly, but I soon observed things were not the same between Mr. Trelawney and the captain. This last was a sharp-looking man who seemed angry with everything on board, and was soon to tell us why, for we had hardly got down into the cabin when a sailor followed us. "Captain Smollett, sir, asking to speak with you," said he. "I'm always at the captain's order. Show him in," said the squire. The captain, who was close behind his messenger, entered at once and shut the door behind him. "Well, Captain Smollett, what have you to say? All well, I hope, all ship-shape and seaworthy?" "Well, sir," said the captain, "better speak plain, I believe, even at the risk of offence. I don't like this cruise. I don't like the men, and I don't like my officer. That's short and sweet." "Perhaps, sir, you don't like the ship?" inquired the squire, very angry as I could see. "I can't speak to that, sir, not having seen her tried," said the captain. "She seems a clever craft. More I can't say." "Possibly, sir, you may not like your employer either," says the squire. But here Dr. Livesey cut in. "Stay a bit," says he. "Stay a bit. No use of such questions as that, but to produce ill feeling. The captain has said too much, or he has said too little, and I'm bound to say that I require an explanation of his words. You don't, you say, like this cruise? Now, why?" "I was engaged, sir, on what we call sealed orders, to sail this ship for that gentleman where he should bid me," said the captain. "So far, so good. But now I find that every man before the mast knows more than I do. I don't call that fair now, do you?" The captain is saying that he was not told where he was to sail the ship. He was just told, "Here's a job. We want you to sail the ship wherever we tell you to go." But the captain then finds out that all of the crew know exactly where they're going, but he knows nothing. And he doesn't think that's fair, that the captain of the ship should know less than the lowest man in the crew. Says Dr. Livesey, "No, I don't think that's fair." "Next," said the captain, "I learn we're going after treasure. Hear it from my own hands, mind you." My own hands means his crew. "Now, treasure is ticklish work. I don't like treasure voyages on any account, and I don't like them, above all, when they're secret, and when, begging your pardon, Mr. Trelawney, the secret has been told to the parrot." "Silver's parrot?" asked the squire. "It's a way of speaking," said the captain. "Blabbed, I mean. It's my belief neither of you gentlemen know what you're about, but I'll tell you my way of it. Life or death, and a close run." The captain is saying, this is very serious business, and it could be a matter of life or death. "That's all clear, and I dare say true enough," replied Dr. Livesey. "We take the risk, but we're not so ignorant as you believe us. Next, you say you don't like the crew. Are they not good seamen?" "I don't like them, sir," returned Captain Smollett, "and I think I should have had the choosing of my own hands if you go to that," meaning he did not get a chance to choose his crew. "Perhaps you should," replied the doctor. "My friend should perhaps have taken you along with him. But the slight, if there was one, if there be one, was unintentional." "And you don't like Mr. Arrow?" "I don't, sir. I believe he's a good seaman, but he's too free with the crew to be a good officer. A mate should keep himself to himself, shouldn't drink with the men before the mast." "Do you mean he drinks?" cried the squire. "No, sir," replied the captain, "only that he's too familiar. That means that the boss shouldn't be too familiar with the people that he is in charge of." "Well, now, and the short and long of it, Captain," asked the doctor. "Tell us what you want." "Well, gentlemen, are you determined to go on this cruise?" "Like iron," answered the squire. "Very good," said the captain. "Then, as you've heard me very patiently, saying things that I could not prove, hear me a few words more. They are putting the powder and the arms in the forehold. Now, I should tell you that the captain and the officers sleep in the back part of the ship, which is called the stern or aft. They have a cabin back there and quarters back there where they sleep. The crew, the sailors, sleep in the front. It's called the forecastle, and it is in front of the mast, which is the front mast or the foremast. That's where their sleeping quarters are. Now, if they're putting the powder, the gunpowder, and the arms, the guns, the swords, all of the weapons in the front of the ship by their quarters, that's not such a good thing for the captain and the officers and the owners of the ship, the people who bought and chartered the ship, namely Dr. Livesey and Squire Trelawney. Not such a good thing, because it means they have no weapons. They are defenseless. Now, you have a good place under the cabin. Why not put them there? First point. Then, you're bringing 4 of your own people with you, and they tell me some of them are to be berthed forward, meaning with the crew. Why not give them the berths here beside the cabin? Second point. Any more? Asked Mr. Trelawney. One more, said the captain. There's been too much blabbing already. Far too much, agreed the doctor. I'll tell you what I've heard myself, continued Captain Smollett, that you have a map of an island, that there's crosses on the map to show where the treasure is, and that the island lies, and then he named the latitude and longitude exactly. I mentioned before, latitude and longitude is how you tell where you are on the surface of the globe of the earth. I never told that, cried the squire, to a single soul. The hands know it, sir, returned the captain. Livesey, that must have been you or Hawkins, cried the squire. Do we believe him? Not really. It doesn't much matter who it was, replied the doctor, and I could see that neither he nor the captain paid much regard to Mr. Trelawney's protestations, meaning they did not believe Mr. Trelawney either. Neither did I, said Jim. To be sure, he was so loose a talker. Yet in this case I believe he was really right, and that nobody had told the situation of the island. Well, gentlemen, continued the captain, I don't know who has this map, but I make it a point it shall be kept secret even from me and Mr. Arrow. Otherwise, I would ask you to let me resign. "I see," said the doctor. "You wish us to keep this matter dark, and to make a garrison of the stern part of the ship, manned with my friend's own people, and provided with all the arms and powder on board. In other words, you fear a mutiny," meaning the crew will rise up against the officers and the owners of the ship and take over the ship and kill them. "Sir," said Captain Smollett, with no intention to take offense, "I deny your right to put words into my mouth. No captain, sir, would be justified in going to sea at all if he had ground enough to say that. As for Mr. Arrow, I believe him thoroughly honest. Some of the men are the same, I believe. All may be for what I know. That is to say, they may be honest, they may not be. But I am responsible for the ship's safety and the life of every man jack aboard of her. I see things going as I think not quite right, and I ask you to take certain precautions, or let me resign my berth, and that's all." "Captain Smollett," began the doctor with a smile, "did you ever hear the fable of the mountain and the mouse?" "You'll excuse me, I dare say, but you remind me of that fable. When you came in here, I'll stake my wig you meant more than this." "Doctor," said the captain, "you are smart. When I came in here, I meant to get discharged. I had no thought that Mr. Trelawney would hear a word." "No more I would," cried the squire. "Had Livesey not been here, I should have seen you to the deuce," meaning I should have told you to get lost. "As it is, I've heard you. I will do as you desire, but I think the worse of you." "That's as you please, sir," said the captain. "You'll find I do my duty." And with that he took his leave. I have to say, I trust the captain. I think the captain knows what he's talking about and is giving sound advice. "Trelawney," said the doctor, "contrary to all my notions, I believe you have managed to get 2 honest men on board with you, that man and John Silver." "Silver, if you like," cried the squire, "but as for that intolerable humbug, I declare I think his conduct unmanly, unsailorly, and downright un-English." "Oh, well," says the doctor, "we shall see." When we came on deck, the men had already begun to take out the arms and powder, the weapons, and the gunpowder, yo-hoing at their work while the captain and Mr. Arrow stood by superintending. Mr. Arrow, by the way, is called the first mate. The captain is the real captain of the ship. The new arrangement was quite to my liking. The whole schooner had been overhauled. 6 berths, that is to say beds, had been made astern, out of what had been the after part of the main hold. And this set of cabins was only joined to the galley is the kitchen, and forecastle by a sparred passage on the port side. The port side of a ship is the left side as you're facing forward, in the direction the ship is going. The starboard side is the right side of the ship, as you're facing forward. It had been originally meant that the captain, Mr. Arrow, Hunter, Joyce, the doctor, and the squire were to occupy these 6 berths. Now, Redruth and I were to get 2 of them, and Mr. Arrow and the captain were to sleep on deck in the companion, which had been enlarged on each side till you might almost have called it a roundhouse. Now, a roundhouse is a small, like a small house built on top of the deck. Very low it was still, of course, but there was room to swing 2 hammocks, and even the mate seemed pleased with the arrangement. Even he, perhaps, had been doubtful as to the crew, but that is only guess, for as you shall hear, we had not long the benefit of his opinion. We were all hard at work, changing the powder and the berths, when the last man or 2, and Long John along with them, came off in a shore boat. The cook, that is to say Long John Silver, came up the side like a monkey for cleverness, and as soon as he saw what was doing, "So ho, mate," says he, "what's this?" "We're a changing of the powder, Jack," answers one. "Why, by the powers," cried Long John, "if we do, we'll miss the morning tide." "My orders," said the captain shortly. "You may go below, my man. Hands will want supper." "Aye, aye, sir," answered the cook, and touching his forelock, he disappeared at once in the direction of his galley. And remember, Long John Silver is the cook, and he's going down to the galley, which is the kitchen, to do the cooking. "That's a good man, Captain," said the doctor. "Very likely, sir," replied Captain Smollett. "Easy with that man, easy," he ran on to the fellows who were shifting the powder. And then suddenly observing me examining the swivel we carried amidships, a long brass 9, the swivel is a small cannon, and it shoots a 9-pound cannonball, and it's made of the metal brass. That's why he calls it a swivel, because you can swivel it around in different directions, and it's in the middle of the ship so that it's useful in many directions. "Here, you ship's boy," he cried, "out of that! Off with you to the cook and get some work." And then, as I was hurrying off, I heard him say quite loudly to the doctor, "I'll have no favorites on my ship." I assure you, I was quite of the squire's way of thinking, and hated the captain deeply. That's the end of chapter 9, and you can see, if you listen carefully, that there are many questions about this voyage that have not yet been answered, and we have many suspicions that all will not go smoothly. Anyway, we'll save that for chapter 10.